Reggie here, your friendly neighborhood bodybuilder and comic book collector, and I want to welcome you to another one of my live streams. It gives me great pleasure to welcome to the channel again two representatives from CGC, Matt and Brittany. It is good to see both of you guys. Welcome to the channel again.
Hi.
Hey, Reggie, we're happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us back.
It is good to see you guys. I had some technical difficulties right at the beginning of this thing. Someone gave me the tip to do a speed test right before going live. And I did that and realized I didn't have enough bandwidth to actually do the live stream. So I had to run into the other room, reset all of my technology, and thankfully got everything back up and running. So it is definitely good to see you guys. It's good to have everyone in the chat. And I want to thank everyone that is viewing this thing live and also those that are viewing this thing back on replay. How have you guys been? Because it's been, what, 3 weeks since we did the last live stream? How are things going?
They're going fine.
We're busy. We are so busy.
Yeah.
And we're ramping up for show season's about to just take off. Starting this weekend, we're going to a show in West Palm Beach, Comic-Con Revolution, and we have just back-to-back shows all through March. So we're just trying to tighten up things at the office in preparation for a lot of people being out this upcoming month.
Yeah,
So I got to send my books in now is what you're telling me.
Right.
Is that what I just heard? Because I have a ton of books behind me that I haven't sent and I need to do it. So I'm going to write that down and I'm going to make that happen. But again, I'm glad you guys, even in the middle of being busy, getting ramped up for con season, I'm glad you guys were able to carve out a little bit of time to actually join the live stream. I want to say hello to a couple of people here in the room that have joined us. And then I'm going to punt it over to you, Matt, to give us a little bit of an introduction as to why we chose to do this live stream. So let me say hello to Swaggernaut. Marciel is in here. TJ Slab Dragon was here, but had to step away for a moment. Hialeah Comics Bro, it is good to see you, brother. Chris is here. Ruben is here. Cloud Mover is in the house. My buddy, Steve Rogers. Absolutely love saying that name. It's good to see you, my friend. Evan Tube Raw is here, giving me some mentorship behind the scene. Kingpin Comment is here. Broke Cuz of Comics is in the house. It is good to see you, brother, as always. My good friend Whitewell Comics is here. Gorilla Grodd, Bub Collects is also here. I want to thank again everyone that is joining the live stream. I absolutely appreciate you guys taking time out of your day to actually join this thing. And if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, I definitely want to encourage you to do so that you can stay abreast of all the content that we release on a weekly basis. So with that, Matt, give us a rundown as to why you suggested this as a topic for this live stream.
Yeah, I think pressing is a huge part of grading. I think, CGC started 20 years ago. Pressing was not really something that was on people's radar. And over the years, it's become integral to grading. So, now obviously CGC has both services, both pressing at CCS and then grading at CGC. So it's people who are submitting comics, it's very important for them to understand when pressing works and when you should use it when they're submitting their comic books so they can maximize the potential of those books.
Yep. And we're going to dig into all that. We're going to dig into, to some degree or another, what is pressing, why you should press, what are pressable defects, what aren't pressable defects. At the end of the day, this live stream is designed to make all of us a little smarter about pressing and to help us to figure out, should we get a book pressed or not? Right? And should we submit that book then to be graded by someone? And so that's the whole purpose of this conversation. Everything in this live stream is really going to be geared around improving our understanding of pressing and the benefits that come along with that. All right. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into the first question that I have. Yes, pressing has been around for some time, right? But there are new people that are coming into this hobby. There are new people that are finding out about CGC and finding out about pressing. And I think people have a lot of questions. So at a very high level, can you give us a quick download as to what pressing is?
Sure. Pressing is the removal of defects from a book. It doesn't add to the book. It doesn't take away from the book. It just returns the book back to its original state. The defects that come out with pressing are very light defects. They don't break color. So it's mainly bends and dents to the cover, corner crunches, light spine rolls or heavy spine rolls. And basically anything that's going to mar the surface of a comic book and prevent it from getting a higher grade. but it can be removed with pressing without adding to the book, like restoration.
Now, just at a general level, why would someone choose to have a book pressed? And again, this might be a very obvious question, but we want to state it just to avoid any kind of confusion. Why would someone choose to get a book pressed?
Yeah, there's actually two reasons. The main one, I think, that most people assume is that you get a higher grade, which in today's market, the difference between 92, 94, 96 can be huge. And so their pressing is the most valuable, but also pressing is really good at improving the appearance of a book. So especially lower grade books that have a lot of dirt, a large spine roll, or it's wavy, even if you're not trying to get a higher grade, pressing can actually make the feel and the look of the book look a lot better.
Yep. So, Brittany, for the sake of transparency, can you talk a little bit about the services that CGC/CCS actually offer for pressing? Because again, this is one of those things that people have some confusion about and some questions about, because there's two types of services. But can you give us a quick rundown of the services that are available to people?
Yes, for pressing, you have all the same tiers that you have when it comes to grading. So you have modern tier for pressing, value tier for pressing, economy, standard, express, and walkthrough. We also have a quick press service, which you have to have a minimum of at least 15 books to put them through a quick press. And we have quick press modern and quick press value. You can get your books back slightly faster going through the quick press option. For our full press options, the tiers match up to the grading tiers. So if you have a modern fast track book that you submitted for grading, it's going to be modern fast track for pressing as well. So the grades will always be this, the tiers will always be the same. We also have restoration removal is under the pressing umbrella, and restoration is as well.
Yeah, which is, removal is another topic, but also relevant too.
But yeah, it's part of the services.
Yeah.
Yep. And we're actually going to get into that a little bit later, but I at least wanted to tee up the fact that there are different levels of pressing that are available. And over the course of this, what we'll kind of dig into is which pressing option may make the most sense for what the person is submitting and the type of defects that can be found on that book. So we're going to dig into that in moments. So bear with us. So Brittany, if you can also pay attention to the chat to see if there's some good questions that come up here. We want to make sure that we pull those things in. I've had a couple of people say that they've been told that their faces are unpressable defects. And again, CGC and CCS actually cannot help with those type of defects to one's face. I also look like someone's dad, I guess, because of this beard. It won't last because my wife hates beards, so this won't last very long. I get a couple of days at most with this thing. So, Matt, this question is for you, brother. What exactly is a pressable defect, and how does it differ from a non-pressable defect?
Well, the hard and fast rule is that it doesn't break color. So the biggest difference, the best way to describe it is the difference between a bend and a crease. So the two are very close and similar to each other, except the difference is the point when a bend becomes a crease is whenever the color's broken. Now, this is not always the case, because in thicker covers like Golden Age covers, the paper is so strong and the ink is so strong that even a crease can form without breaking the color. So in those cases, you have to qualify that, because there are times where there are creases on Golden Age books that don't break color, that are still too deep to come out. But it's kind of hard to describe without showing examples. But a bend there's paper fibers, and so when paper's bent, if the paper fibers are not broken, it'll just kind of create just a hump in the paper. And it could be like a finger bend with the point of your thumb or finger. It could be a corner that's dog-eared a little bit, or it could just be like a light bend from improper storage, spine stress lines from the spine being curled. But as those paper fibers bend, at some point those fibers are going to break and actually that's what causes the crease, the hard break. And so if that's the case, in terms of those creases, no matter how hard you press a crease, there's still going to be a line in the paper. And so even if we press those flat, they're still going to show up in grading, and the book will still get deducted for those kind of creases. So that's the basic difference between a crease and a bend. And then, of course, there's subscription creases and bends, and readers creases and bends, and polybag bends, and printer creases and all that. And some can be pressed out and some can't, but generally they just can't break color.
And so maybe one way to give people a visual is if you think about a black cover, for example, right? If it has a bend, the paper still is black, right? It's a ripple, right? If it's a crease, you will actually see a white potentially in the middle of that black field, if you will. And maybe that's one way to visually describe a bend, which is a pressable defect, from a crease, which actually breaks color. And I also have in the description of this video, I actually have a link to my lingo series where we actually show some examples of these things that we're talking about now, because sometimes, again, without a visual, it can be a little hard to understand these things. But Matt, was there anything in that I stated incorrectly, or would you like to add anything to what I said or to what you originally said?
No, that you put it perfectly. The only thing I would add to that is in the cases of white areas of cover, particularly the back cover around the border, you run into an issue where you don't have color to indicate whether the crease is too deep to press out or not. That's where it gets more into having the experience to look at a crease or a bend on a book and be able to ascertain if it can be pressed out or not. And that's just one of those things where, you know, there's some books where if the paper's thin, it's going to crease very quickly, or in terms of thicker covers like Golden Age, even moderate creases can be pressed out. So it really just depends on the type of crease and the type of paper. So white areas are a little bit tougher, but generally speaking, yeah, color is going to be your main thing that you're going to see. And if those break color, then you can't press those out.
Very good. Very good. I want to ask a question slightly out of turn because my buddy Whitewell is asking this question, and it's around, is there an easy way to identify if a book has been pressed or not? And I think we touched on this briefly in previous videos, but I think it's a great question. And so I want to ask it here. Is there an easy way to tell if a book has been pressed before?
No, well, if it's done improperly, yes. And this is all book in hand, not in holders. But yeah, if a book's been improperly pressed, there's a lot of side effects that can occur from that, which we have covered. We did a series of articles on this a number of years ago on the CGC's website. There's a lot of terms that we use like cockling, warping, flaring, pebbling, canvassing. You know, these are all side effects of improper pressing that mainly occur from either, you know, heat, too much moisture, too much pressure, or something against the comic book that the pressure is pushing the shape or the texture of that paper or whatever it's being into the comic book. So these are all signs that when you're holding the comic in hand, you can tell if it's been pressed or not. You know, like if you hold the comic up this way and the pages flare out, or if the cover is very warbly, or it has like little pebbled impressions in it. And, you know, and I should again qualify this because a lot of these defects we're talking about can also be caused by things other than pressing. So it's not necessarily a given that if you see these things, the book's been pressed. But generally speaking, you know, you can usually tell if a book's absent of all bends and dents and it's got, you know, rippling and warping going on. There's a good chance it is. But if the book's been properly pressed, then no. I mean, the point of pressing is to return the book to its original state. So if it's been done correctly, the book should look like it was when it was printed. And at that point, it's going to be extremely difficult to tell.
I think one of the things that you mentioned previously is that if a book is overly flat, like when you set it on a table, if it's overly flat where there's no real bend even to the spine, that could potentially be a sign that that book has been pressed before. Is that still a true and accurate statement?
Yeah, that we don't see that quite as often, but yeah, books that are
Actual book.
There you go.
Is it wavy over on the side of the spine?
Yeah, it's got the curve around the edge. So there's two things. One, you can actually press a book so flat that it feels like kind of a pancake. It's just thin. The paper's thinned out. The fibers have been pushed flat so much that the book just has a limp or very thin feel to it. Another thing is what we call crushed spines, which is where the spines have been pressed, isolated and pressed to where the curve is now, it becomes a point like this. Yep. And so the paper's been pushed out like this. So yeah, that's another side effect from pressing that, you know, can actually occur.
And this is also something that we've spoken about before, but Whitewell asked the question, and my buddy Walt actually asked the same question, is let's say that you have a book that has been pressed and you feel that some of the defects weren't pressed out or that the pressing wasn't done properly for whatever reason. Does it hurt to press that book again? And put another way, is there the potential for a book to be damaged through multiple pressings?
Well, that's, yeah, two very different but very important questions. The first one is that, yeah, you can press a book multiple times. If you're doing it correctly, you're not going to damage the book. And yes, books that have improper pressing or leftover bends can certainly be pressed again. We do it all the time. As far as books getting damaged, this is a very, very important thing. Yes, absolutely. Obviously, it can be damaged if it's improperly pressed or handled. That's a given. But one of the things that we state on our website, we try and make clear often, is that sometimes you just deal with books that are very fragile. And in today's market, we're slabbing books that are lower and lower and lower grade because values are going up. More people are coming into the hobby. People are collecting more low grade comic books, and subsequently they're sending those in for pressing and grading. So if you're pressing a book that has a fragile or brittle paper, if the spines are weak and starting to split, if staples are starting to become detached or are hanging on by thread, if you have pieces on the edges that are loose and hanging, these are all things that could possibly become disconnected or torn or split during the pressing process. So we try to put a lot of safety measures in place to keep this, to mitigate this. We tell people when they submit books to check them very carefully, give them outlines to, things to look for. And then when the books come into CCS, we have our people checking the books as they're going to look for all these signs to make sure that they're not going to press a book that could potentially get damaged. In those cases, we'll just reject the book, send it, notify the client, ask, if they still want it to have graded without pressing. And, with all that being said, there's still times where books do get damaged here and there. I like to think that it happens very, very frequently on our watch. But if it ever does happen, there's certain things that we will not cover, like pop staples, because it does happen. There are times where you cannot tell that it's going to happen. There's certain books like DC books from the 60s. There's 70 books, 70s Marvels, in particular Miss Marvel #1, which is a really popular book right now. These books, for some reason, when they were printed, the staple is just really, really weak. And a lot of copies, before they're even pressed, you'll see, if you see a lot of Miss Marvel ones, you'll notice that the bottom or the top staple is already cleanly detached. It's like a little split. So it's not something where it was pulled apart. It actually just split because of the way the paper that they used. And so in these situations, there's just no warning. Sometimes you press a book and the staple pops. So in those cases, we don't cover that. But if there's ever anything that happens that, something from the pressing process that shouldn't have, we'll definitely cover that.
That's super helpful, because one of my next question was around how do you spot a good candidate for pressing? But I think you've almost given us the opposite, which is how to spot potentially books that should not be pressed. And I heard things like brittle pages, maybe some pop staples. Are there other things that would essentially disqualify a book for pressing? And I think it's a wonderful thing to kind of talk about, especially when you think about like Fantastic Four 48, 49, and 50. A lot of people are buying those. A lot of people are buying them in lower grade, myself included. And sometimes those books are a little brittle and fragile. Can you talk a little bit more about what might disqualify a book for pressing?
Yeah, as far as like damage goes, there's a couple of things. There's, besides the things I mentioned, books that have tape, sticky substances, existing restoration. We can usually work around these things, but these all pose potential issues because obviously, sticky substances can adhere to a surface and pull paper off. Tape can actually, you can push an impression of tape into paper, or if the spine's taped and you need to roll the spine, you can't roll it because the tape is preventing the paper from reshaping into its original form. And then there's also books, there's certain modern books with all the different printing processes they have now, or the different kinds of paper that they use, like lenticular covers, covers that have books that have inserts in them, very, very, very thick square bound books. There's certain books in there that we don't recommend pressing because, those, either you're not going to get the effect that you want because the paper's too thick, or the paper just responds poorly to pressing. So a few things there. We've managed to work through most of these things, but these all do pose problems for anybody who's trying to press books.
That is very helpful. Okay, so let's flip it to the other side. So what are some things that people should look for in books that should be pressed or that can be improved through the pressing process? Are there some telltale things that would easily identify a book?
Yeah, well, the higher grade books, you're going to be looking for smaller things. So if you're looking for a book that's in, say, 9.4, you're going to be looking for, there's going to be very little wrong with it already. So you're looking for little tiny edge mainly bends in the cover, or maybe spine stress lines that don't break color. That's it. As you move down the scale, you get into the 6.0 range. Then there's other factors that come in, like spine rolls, a large number of bends and dents in the cover, large, creases or almost creases. And then whenever you get into the low grade, it's basically more of that, just, books that just have a lot of, so it's a lot more, it's more difficult to tell if a book is a press candidate on higher grades, because like I said, you're looking for a much smaller kind of defect in the book. And the best way to go about doing it is either, if it's already graded, you can get the grader's notes, which sometimes helps. But if you just have a book in front of you, the best thing to do is, as we discussed in the last video, is to just hold it up in the light and shine the light on the book and just see if there's any impressions in the cover that if there's any bends that don't break color. Something that you're not going to be able to see if you hold the book up straight. That's the best way to do it. Now, the next question, which I may be getting ahead of myself here, is figuring out balancing between pressable defects and non-pressable defects to determine if you can get an upgrade or not. So again, with the 9.4, you have a very short list of defects that the book can have, and you have to weigh those defects. So for instance, let's say a 9.4 has 3 color breaking spine stress lines and then a small number of finger bends on the right edge. You have to know, or at least be familiar enough with the grading scale to know if the number of spine stress lines that break color are allowable in 9.6, the grade higher. Then if that's the case and you see nothing else wrong with the book, then you can move on to the pressable defects if they're there, and figure out if that is what's bringing it from a 9.6 down to a 9.4. So that's in a nutshell, that's it. But that's true for all grades, 8.0, 6.0, 4.0. You're basically looking at what is not pressable versus what is pressable, understanding how both affect the grading scale, and figuring out if the pressable defects do indeed count for something that, once they're taken out, can actually cause the grade to go up.
That's definitely helpful. We have a question here from Gino where he's asking, what exactly is spine stress that does not break color? Because we know what a tick is, right? Because a tick is a spine defect that breaks color. But can you describe a spine stress that doesn't break color?
Yeah, they're very small because obviously they.
I'm making one.
She's making one.
Vanna's over here trying to make one.
I don't know if you're gonna be able to see it. What I did was I just bent the spine a little bit, ever so slightly. So there's a teeny tiny crease in there, but you don't see the white of, I don't know if you're gonna be able to get it on.
So you basically have a bend that is not a crease on the spine.
Yeah, let's see if I can't. I don't know if we can hit it just right in the light. But yeah, so basically it's like
easy to see with the human eye. It's hard to show on camera. But I also want to mention that when this is done, we have a whole series of videos that shows different defects and like slight versions of those defects and then severe versions of those defects. Spine stress, bends, foxing. We have like a whole series tape, and I'm gonna make sure that we put that link up. So
yeah, if you could put that link up, I think it would be huge. If you were to send it the link to me, I can definitely include it in the video. But I think we're talking about some things that I think can benefit from visuals. And if you guys have some great videos that kind of highlight these things, I think we should bring them to people's attention.
Yeah.
So briefly, Brittany, where can people find those things? Or where do you think that you're going to post it so that people can actually look for it?
They all live on our website. I think that they're just more buried than they need to be. So I'll send you the link, and we'll actually put some links up on our social media to say, hey, just in case you guys forgot, these videos exist. The cinematography on the videos to highlight the defects is incredible. So it's they're really good tools to use when you're just trying to identify that kind of stuff in person.
Excellent. And Matt, I cut you off, brother. I apologize for that. Go ahead and make your point.
So yeah, I just didn't want to lose the question. It's color break happens real quick. So spine stresses that don't break color typically are tiny, and they're on very high grade books, 9.8s. The best way to see them is to just take your book, hold it directly up like this, and on the back cover, it's going to be hard to see in the color, but if you have a white strip on the back cover, if you hold it up with the light shining down like this, you'll see on a lot of books, you'll see like little tiny tick marks here. And then if you flip it over to the front cover, the tick mark usually travels over to the front as well. And the ones that don't break color, those will be obvious, and the ones that do. But once you get once the severity of the crease goes past a very small point, it breaks color, with the exception of, like I said, golden age books with very thick paper. And if those break color, or even those heavy ones that don't break color, again, like the crease we were talking about earlier, those are not necessarily going to come out.
One of the questions that always comes up around pressing is, can you press a signed book? This always comes up. And then, so can you press a signed book, and does it matter what the book is signed with, whether it's like a Sharpie or a pen? Does it matter?
Yeah. Well, yes, we can press books.
Definitely.
Yeah, and we do it all the time. The only book that we've had trouble with, or rather the pen, is a paint pen. Paint pen.
Which Todd McFarlane loves to sign in. Won't sign in anything else.
Well, we got him to stop, I think.
He might, yeah.
Yeah, we hope. Yeah, but we had, the ink was lifting off, the sign, the signature was lifting off, the ink was lifting off. So we even figured out a way to remove the signature and have him re-sign it. So we've even worked around that problem. But I mean, everything else, all the Stanley SIGs, everybody else, I mean, marker, pen,
Sharpie,
Sharp, those are all fine. Yeah, those are not going to be affected.
I'm a big fan of the Sharpie. I actually literally watched Todd earlier today. He was using a quill to ink something, and I was watching it earlier, and he was talking about how he sets the ink out for like 3 days so it has the right viscosity, and he was talking about the tip on the quill, the paper quality, and the viscosity of the ink. And I was riveted the whole time, and I'm watching him make these little lines and impressions, and I'm like, this dude's an artist, but
well, hopefully that works too. We'll find out if we can press quill signatures.
Good luck with that. Good luck with that. So one of the things that I've always kind of thought, and maybe you can correct me, is because pressing improves the overall appearance of a book, and because we're talking about paper that has been in lots of different situations over decades, if we're talking about an older book, part of my feeling is that I always think that a book looks better after it's been pressed. Whether it improves the grade or not, I don't know, but I think they always look a little bit cleaner after they've been cleaned and pressed. Do you think that books should be pressed even if they aren't slabbed? Like, what's your thought with that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not just saying that for the company to make money. No, I think that, like you're saying, they feel and look so much better. And most people don't get to feel the books because the vast majority of them go in holders. But there are plenty of lower value books and lower grade books that, they get a snap to them when they're pressed. They get dry clean, all the dirt comes off of them. Spinals are taken out, corners are folded over. And, there's even a suspicion of mine that sometimes the inks or the gloss may actually be enhanced, or not enhanced, but smoothed out or something that causes them to pop a little bit more with pressing. I mean, that's a very subtle thing, and I can't really say that is for certain, but there have just been a number of people over the years who've been like, wow, the book just looks brighter, shinier. And I'm like, great, so there's another reason. But I think, there's a lot of, books that, just like in dealers' boxes, it shows that would probably sell better if they were pressed. They don't have to be graded, but, just press and put back in the box.
I mean, I think, if you were to clean it and press it and stick it back in a Mylar, an archival bag, it's like the perfect situation, even if you choose not to encapsulate the book. So, Brittany, I actually have a question for you. So, and this is actually not my question. It's Roger B's question. And he's asking, let me make sure I get this right. He said, if he sends in a book to be screened at a 9.8 with a quick press, if the book already looks like a quick press, already looks like a 9.8, would they still do the quick press, or would they skip it and just grade and encapsulate the book?
A lot of times I think people get confused with pre-screening and screening with CCS. So pre-screening your books is saying, I'm going to send in these 25 books and I want you to and I'm going to pre-screen them for 9.8, which means graders look at them and they'll reject ones that can't get a 9.8 and they'll grade ones that can do 9.8 or above. Screening with CCS is, can you screen my book to see if it's a good press candidate? So if you pre-screen your books with CGC, no one at CCS knows that there's a pre-screen on your books, and they will quick press your books even if that book looks like it's a 10, because the people who are pressing the books aren't graders. And although they have a keen eye for all those defects, it's still just two totally separate things. And no one that's pressing the books knows that they were pre-screened for CGC services. So they would go ahead and quick press it.
There we go.
Yeah, the only time that we're going to reject is if, like I said, the book is there's a danger of pressing it. But yeah, pretty much the pressing service. Now, if somebody wants to be notified whether it should or should not be pressed, and that's what the CGC screening service is.
And that's an option.
Yeah, and so they can have all the books checked beforehand, and those that don't need it are taken out and sent directly to grading, and then the others get pressed.
There we go. I think that's very helpful. So Chris Barrett is asking this question about smuts. And he's saying if he has ASM 143 and there's smuts on the cover, would a cleaning and pressing actually improve that? And I think the answer is yes. Anytime smuts is removed, I think it's a good thing. Brittany, Matt, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, schmutz. Yeah. Well, I guess there's certain kinds that can be taken off, and schmutz is a catch-all phrase for anything, a foreign substance on the cover of a book.
Stuff.
Stuff. Yeah. And some stuff can be taken off, some can't. Some will affect pressing, some won't. Some will affect grading, some won't. If we have something that's going to affect the pressing process that can be easily removed, we will do that. And actually, if it can come off in the dry cleaning step beforehand, we'll take that off. We do the dry cleaning step's actually very important that people don't really talk a lot about. It's, in people's minds, you just quickly clean the dirt off the white areas of the cover, and that's true. That's the main thing. But we're also, removing schmutz, removing anything on the cover that could actually affect pressing or grading. We will skip arrival dates if we feel that they're pertinent to the book. Or if there's something that we catch in a book that we need to notify the customer about, we will. But there are certain things that, might be safe for pressing that might not, that might affect the grade. That will just, in those cases, we'll press the book, we'll not remove that schmutz and then send it on the CGC. So if people have, if they have a question about, an area that they want that addressed, very easy, just put a sticky note on there, submit it to CCS for screening. We'll check that area if it needs to be removed or if it can be removed, and do that. But generally speaking, we don't really, if we can take it off quickly, we will. If it's going to affect pressing, we will, but otherwise it's going to go through.
There we go. All right. So I want to shift back to grading for just a moment, because we've kind of talked about the fact that if you were to have a book cleaned and pressed, that it would improve the appearance of that book. Like we've kind of established that makes sense. So if the smuts is removed from the book, it is cleaned, it is pressed, it's looking pretty good. Realistically, what type of grade improvement can someone expect, right? Is it realistic to think that you're going to go from 0.5 to a 5 or a 6? But that's probably not realistic. But what is a realistic grade bump that someone could expect if they're going from an unpressed, dirty book to a pressed and cleaned book?
It could be anywhere from no increase to several points. I think the record might be a 4.0 that went to like a 9.0 or 9.2 or something like that. It's words, yeah. Gaines fog copies. There have been many copies that are pressed from 8.0, 7.5.8 up to 9.8. So that's possible. Generally speaking, it's 1 to 2 points, or I should say 0 to 2 points, really, depending on how you play it. But generally, most books are getting pressed or high grade, and therefore they have less to press, and so they can move up. They're going to take smaller incremental increases. So, but yeah, generally what I've seen is like 1 to 2 points is about what you would expect. And excuse me, in this day and age, a lot of stuff has been pressed and is getting repressed because pressing processes have gotten better. People want to take a second shot. Maybe the book was fully pressed, but maybe they feel like the graders were a little tight that day, and if they were on 9.4, maybe they're on the fence to 9.6, and the owner wants to see if they can take a shot at that. So with those factors in, there's going to be fewer defects. The increase is going to be smaller. Back in the day, 20 years ago, there were unpressed books everywhere, and you were seeing huge grade increases, 6.0 to 8.0. I will say that in the mid-grade range, you're going to see more point increases because you're dealing with more defects.
Mm.
So, you know, it's not uncommon to see a 5.0 go to a 6.5 or a 6.0 go to even an 8.0. If you find the right candidate with, you know, with just all the right defects, you know, they're out there, but really there's no hard and fast rule. It's a case by case basis.
There we go. I want to toss this one to Brittany. Let's say that I have a CGC slab and it's the old label. And I'm looking at this book through the case and I swear it's never been pressed. How would I go about sending that book back to CGC for you guys to clean it, to press it, and to regrade it? What does that look like? Should I send the whole slab? Should I crack the slab and send it in the inner whale? Like, how should I go about returning that book to you guys to look at again?
That's a great question, and I actually really appreciate that question. So you can submit a book that's been graded through our online form, and you're actually going to type the cert number of that old book in there, not only to keep our census accurate, but it'll keep all the information from the first time that book was submitted. So when that goes in, you can actually type the cert number and it autofills all that info, and you select the pressing service that you want and the grading service that you want, but we want you to send it in its slab. Slabs are meant to protect the book, and if you're going to ship it, keep it protected while you're shipping it. It's extra.
Well, and plus also just in case maybe we're not going to press it, we can leave it in the holder. Because we screen books through the holder.
Yeah, if they were sending it in for screening.
I mean, I think that's awesome, because I'm gonna be honest with you. That is like one of the big questions that I hear from people is, should I crack it? Should I send it back in? Should I send it raw? What about the census? How do we keep the census up to date? And so I made that question up on the fly. I'm glad it was a really good question because it popped into my head as you guys were talking. But I think that will hopefully help address some of the questions that people have about how do I get my book examined again, possibly pressed, possibly regraded, and also do it in a way that keeps the census data up to date.
Correct.
Right. Yeah, the tags for older books. So you always want to send your books back in holders, whether they're our holders or another company's holders. The books are just safer in them. So you don't take them out. We will crack them out here. Keeping the census data information accurate is really important. So when you resubmit a book that's been graded, you want to keep that tag with it. So when it gets its new certification number, that other one's removed, and it doesn't look like there's two books. It doesn't look like there's more books out there that have been graded than there actually have.
Got it. Very helpful. So Probe 187 is asking a question: is around Christmas, if he sends cookies, will that help him get 9.8s?
Absolutely.
Doesn't hurt.
Absolutely. No.
My attention.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Actually, no. We do not accept gifts. So, and even it doesn't influence anything. We're definitely all about our reputation. So, you know, it doesn't matter. We're going to call the book what it is.
I'll still eat the cookies.
I heard that. I am not mad at you. I have a cookie thing going on. I'm a big chocolate chip raisin kind of guy. I'm sorry, oatmeal raisin. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
All right. I just had a macaron for the first time the other day. We've been watching a lot of these kids bake off things. And so we had a macaron the other day.
Someone in the chat said that they had a 5.0 go to a 9.4 after a press.
Oh,
that's
wow.
crazy.
Oh, somebody also asked if we can press signature series. Very important. Yes, but we are I don't know if there's, if somebody cracks a book out to press it and it's SIG series, or if they crack it up for any reason, that's null and void. That book will not get a yellow label again.
That's another time that books have to come in their slabs.
Very, very
signature
important.
Series.
Now, and also, if people are planning on having signatures added to their books, or even multiple signatures, it's actually preferable if they plan on pressing the book, or even if they don't, they should. For a couple of reasons. One, obviously, it goes through a lot of hands. You've got artists signing it. These people are not always fully aware of how they're handling the book, so there's potential damage there. And also, it's best to do it after the signing, which I think a lot of people it's common sense. But sometimes books they'll do laps for they'll go through 3 or 4 people, 5 people to get signed. Wait till all that's done. Then when it gets to CGC to get graded, it can go over to CCS first, get its final press before it gets graded. So that's another important thing to say about SIG series.
Very good. That's super helpful. One of the questions here from the room was, does it cost to have you guys crack the slab?
No.
No, yeah, no fee for that. Yeah, whether it comes in raw or slabbed.
I know for a fact that there's quite a few facilitators out there that charge to crack books out. It takes a lot of work. There's shards flying everywhere. I get it, but no, CGC has never charged to crack out books. We don't charge at shows. We don't charge here in house.
We just charge to put them in. We don't charge to take them out.
Yeah.
There we go. So Draven, I think I'm saying that correctly, is asking a question of whether you guys will, I guess, regrade another company's books. I think the answer to that is yes, but I want to give you guys a chance to actually answer that question directly.
Of course, we'll regrade another books that are in other grading companies' folders. We would love to. We have a crossover program for that specific purpose. And those grading fees, if you submit a book in another company's folder, are 40 to 50% less than our what our normal grading fees are. So you get, it just really takes away the risk for you. If there's going to be a grade drop, you paid significantly less to have that book graded, and it's going to be in a CGC holder. What's better than that?
There you go. So Matt, let's play a game. I want to read off to you defects.
Okay.
And we're gonna do this like the lightning round, right? What I want to do is name off defects, and then I want you to tell me whether the defect is pressable or not.
Okay.
And then maybe at the end we can then regroup, and then maybe you can provide additional context around something that might need to be better clarified. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Wheel of defects.
All right, these guys in these chats, man, I don't know how they come up with this stuff so fast. I tell you. All right, so spine roll.
Yes. Press. I'll just say yes for pressable. Okay.
That's
yes.
cool. That works. So spine roll. Yes.
Yes.
Dog-eared corner.
Yes. As long as it doesn't break color, that's assumed here. Yes.
Blunted corner.
Yeah, I would say,
color.
yeah, blunted corner kind of indicates a color break, but yeah, I mean, if the paper's crunched together, sure, we can, yeah, we'll smooth that out, sure.
Color breaking spine tick.
No, we can lay it flat, but it's still gonna be color break.
Non-color breaking spine tick.
Yes, those will come out.
Scuff.
No, that breaks color or gloss, so yeah, that's not gonna be a good one.
Popped staple.
No. Pressing causes that, but pressing will not fix it.
I'm doing good.
Tears.
Yeah. Tears. No, tears will not. No.
Brittle pages.
Nope. That's horrible. Yeah, don't press that. any like off-white or less, probably not a good idea to press it.
Okay, I think that's a good rule of thumb. Okay, good. Missing cover. Can you magically make it appear through pressing?
No. And we cannot press a book so hard that it disappears. We can't do that either.
Very good. Subscription crease.
If it doesn't break color, there's actually some that don't break color. Again, it's back to the whole crease bend thing, but there's actually books, Golden Age especially, that it's a bend through the middle, or at least a partial bend, partial crease, and or maybe the book's like folded like this, and even though you flatten it and it still has maybe a crease in the middle, just the actual act of flattening it may actually increase its grade. So yeah, there's situations where that can work.
So we have a couple from the room. We have water damage from Just Pele.
Water damage, no. Water damage cannot be fixed. That is something, yeah, that's more of a conservation clean.
Chris Barrett, who came up with smuts, is now asking for gunk.
Gunk. I put that under the same classification as schmutz. Gunk. Yeah. Well, if we get it off, we'll get it off.
He is so funny. I kid you not. Captain Crunch is asking a process question here, and he's saying, do you use moisture before pressing, or is it a dry press? I know that sometimes we get into trade secret stuff, but I at least wanted to acknowledge the question here.
Yeah, no, that's a big one. I get that a lot. I've gotten that since day one. I don't talk about the process. I will say that the three elements that are used in pressing by people are heat, humidity, and pressure. You don't need all three. Sometimes usually I guess maybe one or two, but usually those are the components used in pressing. And obviously all three run huge risks if you do too much of it. But yeah, there's different formulas in there depending on the book. It's not the press process is not just a one and done type of thing. You have to work around the different kinds of paper, the different kinds of defects, And yeah, it's not a simple process. I mean, I spent years and years going down a lot of blind alleys trying to figure out the different things to fix it, just trying to press almost anything put in front of me. So yeah, it's a combination.
So there's a question here around stains, and my guess is that pressing won't improve that potentially, but the cleaning process could potentially remove some stains. Is that fair?
Some, yeah. I mean, water stains that are in the paper fibers that cause tide line yeah, and the warping could be fixed. Yeah, any paper that's disturbed by water staining, that can be flattened, and we get a lot of that in where, you know, it's actually stains. Let's talk about that for a minute. So you've got, you know, there's a spectrum of staining. There's the staining that's so light that it does not affect gloss and it does not affect the paper. In other words, it doesn't leave a stain, nor does it cause the gloss to come off. But it causes the paper to ripple and warp. That's more of like your humidity stains, you know, books that have not been exposed to heavy water. Those are great to press because, you know, those, you know, especially if the rippling is really bad, we can do, you know, wonders with that and get that flat. Then you go through the spectrum. You get into like gloss staining next, which is where the water is not heavy enough to seep into the paper and cause tide lines. But if you tilt the book in the light, you'll see that the gloss has been removed or smudged. In those cases, we can sometimes buff those. So we can actually buff gloss staining down to where it's minimal or actually get rid of it completely. Those are real common on Silver Age marbles in white areas. And then finally get over into the actual water staining of the paper, where you have darkening of paper, tide lines, you know, all the impurities in the water that have gotten into the paper and caused this to happen. Sometimes you have a reverse effect where a cover's tanned, and the water stain will actually wash the tanning out of the sizing and make the paper white. So the staining improves the look of the book, but it still looks like a stain because you've got a white mark in front of a brown cover. That cannot be. So none of those can be fixed with pressing. That's now you're moving into in addition into the book that has to be removed through conservation process like cover cleaning.
Very helpful. Shout out to TJ Watson for the super chat and his wave to you, Brittany.
But not
there's some questions in the chat that would be good to get answered too, if you don't
Jump
mind.
on them. Go for it.
They want to know if foxing can be fixed with pressing.
No, foxing is stain. That's the classic stain in the paper that can be fixed with cleaning, water cleaning, solvent cleaning, and conservation, but not with pressing.
And then someone asked if they have a really faded cover, how that will affect the grade. Like if it was displayed in a window for a long time.
Yeah, that's a tough one because fading is kind of like stains. It's hard to quantify, but a lightly faded cover could maybe drop it a point or two if it's high grade. A moderately faded cover could drop it down as low as 7 or 6.0. We get, you know, the ones that are in the window for a little while or on display too long. The ones that are completely washed out, I mean, like the colors are gone, the book is like a black and white comic book, those will drop as low as 3.5, 3.0. If they're completely washed out, regardless of what the structural defects are. So it runs the gamut on the scale from, you know, let's say 3.0 up to, you know, has no effect, you know, above 9.0, 9.2.
And then marble chipping, how marble chipping is affected in grading and pressing.
So the chipping, you know, again, chipping are one of those things you really want to be careful with pressing because, you know, a lot of them are hanging and, you know, can fall off. And again, it really, you know, there's marble tears and then marble chipping. So the tears are the beginning from the blades at the printers, and then over time those tears would turn into chips as they got knocked off. Pressing basically that has no effect on those unless they're flipped over. We can lay them flat. Grading, you know, it just depends. Sometimes we've seen a marble tear that was, you know, 1/16 inch tear. That's not going to have any effect except maybe on 9.8. And then, of course, you know, a handful of marble tears might knock it down to 9.2, 9.0. Then you get into chips. You know, chips may be 9.0, 8. One chip might be like a 9.0. A few chips knock it down quickly into 7.0, and then you can get very fast. If you know, half the edge is chipped, 6.0, 5.5, and of course, if it's badly chipped all up and down the edge, then you can be down to the 4s.
Very cool. Very cool. Brittany, were there any other quick questions that you saw in the chat before we go to our next section here that you wanted to address?
Someone asked about whether if their book's been 3-hole punched, how that will affect it. And there are a lot of books that people just did that.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That we hit those pretty hard. You know, again, it depends on the size of the hole and the number of holes. You know, I mean, typically it's 2 or 3 holes. Sometimes there's the big holes and then the little holes. And this is not to be confused with puncture holes where something is poked through. You know, binder hole.
Actually got,
3-ring binder.
missing.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you have to kind of look at it like, paper's missing from literally both covers, or front and back cover, and every single wrap or page. So, in that case, that's why we hit it so hard. So we'll typically qualify those if they're nice enough. If they're like, 5.0, 6.0 or better, we'll qualify those, because otherwise they're going to end up, if you have 2 or 3, holes in the spine, it's going to be down in the 4s maybe. So it's pretty bad. We hit them pretty hard. So typically those get qualified.
That's very helpful. One last question before we go on to our next section here. From Heroes to Icons, fantastic artist, by the way, has done some original art for me. He is asking whether you can press magazines.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We do.
Yeah, we can press. I mean, anything. We press.
Posters, magazines.
Yeah, we lobby cards. Pretty much any format. We press Playboys and Sports Illustrated.
There's like a few modern covers, like lenticular covers, that we can't grade just because of the what it's made out of. But other than that, for the most part, paper.
That you can't press.
Yeah,
lenticular. I think she inadvertently said grade, and I just want to avoid confusion there. So
yeah, we can't press lenticular covers.
There we go. So let's transition into this last section here. And either one of you, you can take this one, Brittany, and maybe better for you. But can you explain just one more time, because we talked about it at the beginning, the 2 different types of pressing services that CCS offers, as well as the fee structures for them?
We'll go. You want to do the here? You want me to tackle that? The quick. Yeah. So basically, there's a full press and the quick press. There's a lot of questions with this. Basically, the quick press, the book just passes through once. What comes out, and off it goes. It still gets dry cleaned. If there's spine rolls, we still take those out if we feel that they're necessary. Which, by the way, spine roll removal is automatic in the pressing. People don't have to request that, like schmutz. But we assess those books to determine if the spine roll is going to affect the grade or not. So if you have a tiny, like a 1/8 inch roll on a 6.0, we're not going to take that out. If you have a huge roll in a low grade book, assuming the spine's safe to press, we'll definitely take that out. Or if you have a slightly torqued book in a high grade, we'll take that out. But quick press does that as well, but it makes one pass through and it's done. So what that means is that sometimes books have small areas or even large areas maybe that need to be addressed beyond. And this is what I was saying earlier about the different kinds of pressing processes. You can't just have one, because one's not going to get everything out all the time. And so we have a lot of different techniques outside of the main press process that go in and attack all the different areas of books, all the different defects, because the goal of CCS for full press is to max the book out completely, get everything out that can come out that's going to affect the grade. So quick press it's an economical alternative to certain kinds of books. It's basically really good for high grade books that have very few defects or very soft defects. Your modern 9/8 otherwise that come off the printing press with the waves through the cover. We get a lot of those in for quick press, or low grade books that don't really need little things addressed. If you have like a 5.0 with a big spine roll and some bends and some dirt, well, a quick press will be fine on that. But it's important to point out that there's a value cutoff of $200, I believe, for quick press. So quick press is meant to be quick and easy, just to, and again, back to the dealers, the books in dealers' boxes, the raw books that don't need grading. Quick press is great for those, because that will achieve the same effect that full press will in terms of like making the book feel and look good in the hand. And then past that, full press is just basically just everything's addressed.
So the way that I kind of look at it is I have a book that doesn't require a lot of work. I'll do a quick press, right? Minor imperfections, keep it cheap, keep it effective, just get it done. A book that you can look at it and you can see lots of pressable defects, lots of bends, right? Things that can be fixed. That type of book may require the full press, because it's going to get a little bit more attention. It may go through the process more times, right, to actually remove those defects. So that might be kind of one way to help people to differentiate between the 2 services. And then I think, Brittany, you were going to layer on top of what Matt just said.
Our full press is exactly that, but the books are worked on oftentimes if they need to be by hand afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's or repressed even. Sometimes we have defects that are so heavy that they need multiple pressings to get everything to lay flat. Books have been stored. I think I got one years ago in a coffee can. I got two. It was a Morph 167 and another one. I remember Steve Meyer. Anyway, he said it was rolled up like this. And so, yeah, I remember just having to press it to get it flat. Yeah, I can't. Well, this was back like 10 years ago, so I don't know. Hi, Steve, if you see this. Hi. I think you went on the boards and talked about it anyway, so it's okay. But so no, it was a cool story. The reason I mentioned it is because he was all over the boards with it, and I mean, he got pictures everywhere, and of course, I think he posted the post pressing. So I was very proud of all that. But yeah, so I mean, the books need to be, if they need to be addressed multiple times, we'll do that, and that's why we do the value cutoff, because really, it's how we don't want. It's not going to benefit somebody to quick press a $10,000 book, because you want that kind of book to be maxed out before it gets graded. So it's obviously the answer always has to be full press for this kind of books.
Yes, a lot of times people use quick press, like a lot of facilitators that got a huge chunk of books signed by somebody, and they're going to pre-sell them all CGC 9/8. They can run all those through quick press because those books got handled by an artist and signed and thrown over to the side of the table, and running them through quick press before they get graded is a great option for them. They're modern, they just got done, they don't have a ton of defects. But
And Brittany, there's a question here, and I think I know the answer to this. Jake Conrad is asking, if a book needs multiple pressing, if someone is actually submitting it for the full press, will you charge for each press? I think the answer to that is no, correct?
No.
You wouldn't ever know whether or not it went through once or 3 times.
Except you would see a charge for one thing. I think that's the and then there's a question here. Los is asking a question around, if a book has a spine roll and has been graded, would it be worthwhile to send that book back? And I think part of it is, was the book pressed previously or not? Get this question. If a book was sent to CCS and the spine roll looks as though it could be fixed, and it comes back and it still has the spine roll, would it be worth it to send it back in? I think, Matt, you were just speaking to that a few moments ago.
Well, is the question that they got it pressed and it had a spine roll, and they got it back and it still has a spine roll?
Correct. Would they send it back in? Should they send it back in?
We would actually repress it for them free of charge.
Well, it depends. It depends on, like I said earlier, if the spine roll was going to have any effect on grade. It might have been one of those books that we determined didn't need a spine roll removal. So, but yeah, what Brittany's saying is true. If we did miss, if it should have been taken out and was going to affect the grade, then absolutely, yeah, we would take that.
Sorry.
So let's look at it this way. The book was a 6 with the spine roll. With the spine roll removed, the book is still a 6. It doesn't make sense to send it back in.
Only if you want it to be visually nicer looking,
But you would still basically potentially get it back at a 6.
Oh yeah. If it was going to stay a 6, then there's no real reason to do it, unless you just don't like spine rolls and want it out.
Unless it's like personal preference is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, which I hate spine rolls, so I love taking them out. So
so Los may be reaching back out to you guys, because it sounds like he has a personal preference for no spine rolls as well. So Los, definitely reach out to them and have a conversation about that book.
Yeah, and can I add something to that?
Please.
We do have, but the books go to CGC, they get graded. Graders take notes. Sometimes there are notes that graders take on books that were pressed by CCS that the customer sees later and questions, because he feels like those defects should have come out with pressing. May say like spine stress lines is one we get. Should those have been taken out? Well, the graders don't always necessarily say breaks color or not. And occasionally they may actually mislabel a defect as something that appears to be pressable. And sometimes, there is a dent still in the book. So in all those situations, we always review, what the customer is asking to make sure that the book's fully pressed and didn't affect the grade. And in any case, if there's anything that was missed or anything that was not taken correctly on the grading side, we'll do our best to rectify that. We'll certainly repress the book and do all that. But, generally speaking, it's more of a misunderstanding as to the communication, or rather the language used for defining defect by the graders and their interpretation by the submitters.
Okay, very helpful. Thank you for that. So one of the other questions, and I think you guys have already spoken to this before, but regardless of the service that you pick, whether it's a quick press or a full press, the books always get cleaned. Is there a difference, however, in how much time is taken to clean the book if it's a quick press versus a full press?
No, we clean it the same. A lot of books don't require any cleaning. like modern books. And some books require very, very heavy cleaning, like Golden Age, that are very sold in the back cover, especially ones where you're not just dealing with the white border, but the whole back cover is white, with some ad. And we'll actually take the time to clean as much as we can in the middle. There are, like spine rolls, there are books that may have a very light trace of dirt that we will not address because we don't feel like it affects the grade or the appearance. So, we're not dry cleaning every single book until it's stark white and every little thing, we're not going to do that. We try to take a more conservative approach when dry cleaning books and anything that we're doing to a book. We want to just take it from where it needs to go or take it from where it is to where it needs to go without overdoing it. That's also true for removal and everything else that we do. So yeah, but if a book is filthy, then yeah, we'll take the time to clean. We'll take the time to clean it, whether it's quick press or full press.
Very good. Brittany, there's a question in here that I don't quite understand. Maybe you do. Jeff Comic is asking a question around a jewel edition. I'm not quite familiar with that term.
Why can jewel edition be granted?
So I'm not quite, maybe he'll respond, but I'm not quite clear on what that, I'm not sure if he's talking about the Mark Jewelers inserts.
Yeah, maybe so. Well, we can press those. That's no problem.
Yeah. And I wasn't sure if it was I don't know. Maybe he'll respond. So, I want to be respectful of time. I essentially run out of questions over here. I think that this has been a very good conversation that I think is going to go a long way to helping people to understand how to go about identifying books that can potentially be pressed and cleaned and how that will affect the overall grade of a book. Brittany, you've mentioned a couple of times over the course of this stream about additional resources that people can refer to. Can you talk one more time about where people can go for more information about the various services that are offered by CCS, and then what you're also going to do in light of this conversation to highlight some additional resources?
Yes, on our cgccomics.com page, up top, there's a tab that says CCS pressing. And in that tab, it has every question you could possibly think of to ask about CCS, the answers to those. And it has really great pictures of before and after, like amazing pressing results that CCS has, like actual books that have come through here that we photographed because the results were so crazy. And then also there's a number of videos. It was called the Insider Series, and we started doing them as a way to offer some transparency to customers about what defects actually look like, because a defect like a spine tick can be so small that I don't even notice it with my eyes, but graders do. And then you can have severe ones. And what this Insider Series did was highlight the whole range of a certain defect, and graders spoke about them. So I'll highlight those videos on our website, and I'll send you the link of where they'll be.
Excellent. So someone's trying to clarify his point here around why can't jewel editions be graded?
I'm sorry, what kind of editions? Why can't jewel? I'm not sure about that.
I'm not even sure what a jeweled edition is, to be honest with you. And then Thomas is asking a question here about restoration removal. We actually covered that in a previous video. Thomas, you may want to go back and check out one of those live streams where we talk about restoration removal, and all the services that are offered by CCS. There's a ton of great information, so I don't want to cheat and give you an answer that may not be a full answer for the sake of time. So you may want to check out that. So Matt, any parting questions, comments, or thoughts from you as we wrap up this session?
Jeff's asking why we can't do covers that have jewels on them, I believe is what he's asking.
Yes.
Yeah, a couple Lady Death covers have little like jewels like on her eyes and stuff. And
well, that would be like schmutz.
I didn't know what that meant.
when he said Lady Death, I understood then.
Okay. So why don't you guys go ahead and answer that question about Lady Death and her jewels on her eyes?
Yeah, I mean, it's just anything. It's like schmutz. Anything that's raised on the surface of the comic is going to be pushed into the paper. So yeah, we can't do that. It's like tape, which we can press certain kinds of tape, but yeah, tape, schmutz, jewels. There was a Robin issue. Robin, I think with the thing that slides in and out to cut the whatever that thing's called. It causes that little effect. Anyway, so anything that's sitting on top of the comic book.
It's like lenticular.
Yeah, it's just not, we can't press that.
Well, there's a good question here from Chris Barrett. What about like embossment? Like if you're talking about Lobo's crotch or a Silver Surfer 50 or a 75 as well that had some embossment. Can you guys do those books?
We can. Yeah, we figured out a way around that. So we can press books with embossed covers, inserts. Trying to think of yeah, there's many things we can. But if somebody has a question whether we can press something on that, just email Brittany, and she can pass that on to the right people, and they can get that answer to you, because there is a litany of things that are on books that may or may not be pressable. And we can
Very good. Very good. So go ahead.
But from people saying after our last live stream, I watched your show with Regie. It was so great. It was so great. I mean, I had emails. I'm still getting them for days. And I responded to every single one. Every single one.
Yeah.
I thought you were brave for putting that email address out there. But I think it's a sign that you guys have a desire to actually answer people's questions, right? Your appearance on the show, your willingness to give out your actual email address, your ability to actually respond to those inquiries goes a long way to helping make people feel comfortable about who they're sending their books to and how those books are going to be taken care of. So I think that's wonderful that you're doing it.
Yeah, I mean, look, the market's gotten so complicated, or let me rephrase that. It's gotten so, there's so many new things that are coming up with grading and pressing and all the things going out there, and so many new people coming into the market that, it only helps everybody and our business to be able to just be communicative and transparent about these kind of things, because it's a changing market. It's changing fast right now. So yeah, we're more than happy to come on here and do this.
Yep. So as we wrap this thing up, any parting comments from either one of you guys? I know we've kind of done a little bit of a parting comment, but any last thoughts, comments that you guys want to make before we wrap this thing up?
I have one.
Go ahead.
If anybody is ever going to a show, Matt goes to a few shows a year and does evaluations, and he'll actually look at your own books in front of you and tell you whether or not they're good pressing candidates. He'll give you grade ranges, and it's invaluable time, and it's totally free. So if you're ever at a show that Matt is going to and he's offering the evaluations, I highly suggest you bring one or two of your own books and have some one-on-one time with him. Watch him actually point out defects on a book, how they act, like how a grader would actually do it right in front of you. It's just invaluable. So if anybody in the chat, or you, Regie, yourself, if you're coming to a show that he'll be at this year.
Yeah, it's San Diego and New York, I think, are the only two. And I'm there a couple hours a day for a set time. I've been doing this for over a decade now, where I'd set up at shows, and this actually dovetails on what I was going to say, which was the best way, I'll back up a step, the best way to really learn how to spot pressing candidates, that aside, is to, if you're new at this, is to use the screening service, do all your homework ahead of time, look at you, if you have raw books, take notes of that, if you have books in slabs, tilt them in the light, try and figure out, based on grader's notes or whatever, what you're seeing, everything that you're seeing, whether it's pressable or not, and then send them in and then see how they do. That's the best way to do it. But what Brittany's saying, yeah, actually that's a shortcut. There's not a lot of time involved at the shows. Typically people bring 1, 2, 3 books with them. But yeah, if you happen to be there when I'm there and you come to the booth, I'll be more than happy to point out on your book what can be pressed, what can't, and about what grade it might get, or ballpark sometimes. And so, yeah, just a kind of a little education to kind of get you up on the
metal covers and glass covers.
Metal covers and glass covers. Wait, oh, you mean like those big, thick, like the EXO Man of War? Yeah. Oh, gosh. Yeah, we can't. No, not the metal.
And metal covers.
We use pliers when we press those, so we can get the dent out. The glass covers, I don't know. Oh God, no. Then we saw one of those in Baltimore. Yeah. Anyway, no, those no.
But those shouldn't even really need pressing. You would think that with a glass cover would, but maybe the back is not glass. I don't know. I've never seen them in person. So
that's not.
Yeah.
It's still paper.
Right. Yeah. The paper part we can press. But we had an EXO come in with a corner that was dinged, I think, in the mail, and the corner was crunched, just like a paper crunch, but it was a metal crunch. And I didn't get the pliers, but I mean, yeah, there was just at that point, it's just there's no way of getting that out. But maybe that's the next level of pressing, is pressing metal.
All right. Well, there you have it. Breaking news: metal pressing is next. No, joking. All right. So I want to thank everyone that joined this live stream. Thank you for all of the amazing questions that you guys are asking, some of which we were able to get to, some of which we can't. But Brittany has provided her email address. So you guys can always reach out to her with your additional questions. You can always post the comments up. And if I can answer the questions, I absolutely will. So I want to give a huge shout out to those that have participated in this live stream. Matt, Brittany, I want to thank you guys for taking time out of your busy day to actually join this live stream, to actually make us all a little smarter about pressing and the various services that are offered by CGC. I mean, I'm over here taking notes because there were things that I didn't know. So I think that that's always a great exchange when you can walk away actually learning something that you didn't know before that you can actually make use of. So shout out to you guys for taking the time to do this. And again, if you guys haven't already subscribed to the channel, I definitely want to encourage you to take the time to do so, again, so that you can stay abreast of all the content that I release like this. In fact, we are going live with another live stream tomorrow at 7:30 with Cover Price. So we're going to spend some time talking to these guys. So if you can make yourself available for that at 7:30 p.m. Pacific time, I would absolutely love to have you guys join that channel. So thank you again. And if you guys need to reach out to me, feel free to do so at RegieCollects on Instagram and also RegieCollects@gmail.com. Take care.